Hello and welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are the mother-daughter co-founders of the I Create Daily brand.
We are passionate about encouraging positivity, creativity, and productivity while bringing you information and resources that support your creative aspirations.
I Create Daily is for creators in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. So if you are into creating anything, this podcast has something for you.
So tell us, what would support you most in your journey? You can reach us at creators@icreatedaily.com.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their work. I'm Devani.
And I'm Leora.
And today our coffee break is on how to grow a Facebook audience for your creator brand. And we'll touch at the end on a couple tips for Instagram as well. But in this video, we're going to heavily focus on building a Facebook audience because that is what we are the most versed in. And we'll provide resources in the comments for both Facebook and Instagram growth and distribution strategies and everything we're going to cover for that. But we recently had a community member in the I Create Daily for Creators Facebook group asking how to grow an audience on her Facebook and Instagram pages. And because a lot of you in our community that we know of have Facebook and Instagram profiles, we figured we would just answer that question here.
Yes, and it's a really important thing for creators. We've talked about it a little bit before relative to spending your time on social media, posting to your page more than just chatting with your friends, to create a brand page for your artist brand, your creator brand, your writer brand. Now, there are a number of ways to do that, and we can, I guess we could just go ahead and list some of them. So, for instance,
and one quick tip before you start the ways, this also helps. We've recently published a coffee break on how you can manage pages for other artists or other business owners. Mm-hmm. And so if you're tuning in and you want to do this freelance as a job, a lot of these tips will also be useful.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you connected that, because the reality is that many creators need to work full-time and then grow their brand part-time in their spare time, because one of the reasons that so many people are not cut out to be entrepreneurs is that you have to be willing to work. Oftentimes, you have to be willing to work for a long time for free before you can actually begin earning money, and then even more than that, paying bills and supporting yourself with that. However, the time's going to pass anyway, and so it's far better that time passed with you growing your brand around what you're passionate about doing and where you want to be taking your creative endeavor than just wishing it were different or wishing it were so. And there are so many opportunities. We're going to be doing future episodes and articles on people like Daniel Pink, who wrote the book. He wrote the book Drive, and then he also wrote the book A Whole New Mind, which is my favorite all-time book, especially by him, because it really talks about this new era is the era for predominantly right brain thinkers who are also employing left brain, and that is in the concept of business building, brand building, learning the logistics and the analytics and the specifics of what you have to do in order to build a platform to get your work out there. So you see, with the dissolution of the middleman, you don't have to wait for someone to choose you or like your work or decide that you deserve to get your work out there. You do it, but it takes time and effort to build.
And we posted a Mel Robbins article recently, and she mentioned, let me just pull it up real quick. There's a fantastic quote that she cited, and it's very, very relevant to this. She says, Picasso created nearly 100 masterpieces in his lifetime, but most people don't know that he created a total of more than 50,000 works of art. That's 2 pieces of art a day. Success is a numbers game. And you are not going to win if you keep telling yourself to wait. The more often you choose courage, the more likely you will succeed. Some of us can read. That is the same goes for building a brand on social media. When you see viral videos and really, really popular images that get shared a lot, it's generally because that artist spent a lot of time putting lots and lots and lots and lots of their art on social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram. So I think like the biggest tip, if you were just to take away one thing from this video, is be very consistent regularly on posting to your social media. Whether it starts as a once a day thing, which is what we recommend you at least start by posting one piece of your work daily on a Facebook page or your profile, or a mix of both, preferably a mix of both, so that you get both the organic reach from pages and have the advertising options later on, but also so that Facebook likes when people post to their personal profiles a little more than pages, so you can kind of cross blend. We'll get into that a little more later. But again, it's really about consistency, because that quote one viral piece of art that gets spread is because you showed up every day to post your work. And that's the other side of being a creator who's going to monetize from your creativity, is putting your work out there after you've made it.
Yeah, and the important thing is also not just to post your work, but also to engage in conversation and to respond to every comment that people make from your post. So do other things like so sharing in social media is the best way to learn about what people like about your work and about the people who like your work. What are their interests? What are their aspirations? What are their passions? And to encourage that as well. Like one of the things that I Create Daily, we love doing through I Create Daily, we have 3 core C's. It is create, connect, and contribute. And so one of the ways that we love connecting with people and other creators, and one of the advantages in a way that Devani and I are creative and creators, but we're not necessarily, and well, definitely not, and visual artists. Devani dabbles as a hobby, and we're writers for sure, but the advantage in that for the I Create Daily brand is that we're not in competition with any artists, any writers, we are supportive and like cheerleading creators. And
we're a media publishing company,
yes.
And the medium sometimes changes, and it's a blend of writing, it's a blend of audio, video, different things, courses.
That's
maybe
right.
In the future. It's a blend of media, but we publish work, and we publish work to help creators like you who want to hone in or who want to go a mile deep in your writing craft, in your visual arts craft, in your photography, your dance, your video production, whatever it is. We want to be a platform that can share your work.
Yes.
And not because we're artists in competition. And, we like collaboration more.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And, it's an abundant era, and there's enough for everyone. And supporting each other helps us all grow stronger and more successful. So you can do the same thing from your brand page. We've talked in the past, and so in case you haven't seen that, you have your personal profile on your Facebook, for instance, and then to create a business page, and we'll link to the podcast where we talk about the distinctions between profile, page, and group. We'll link to that in the show notes for this episode as well, in case you didn't see it and need more information. But create your personal page, your business brand page as well. Even if you don't have a business name yet, just go with something that you may be working on, or it could be after your name, etc. Later, you can worry about the details of whether you want to grow it more as a brand name or as your personal name as the brand. There are advantages to each and benefits to both. And so like we are doing a little bit of both in that we're building the I Create Daily brand clearly as its own brand. And yet we're also doing the podcast and our articles and memes, quotes, etc.
And we share a lot
branded to ourselves.
And we host the groups as our personal more often than our page.
Right.
And we share to our personal profiles. And excuse me. For your Facebook page, I think what's really important is that you find this balance between sharing between your page and your personal profile. We always recommend having a page because you can actually sell from your page. If you don't have a website yet, and that's just something that's not feasible for you to have right now, you can sell from Facebook. They have PayPal integration, shopping cart integrations, where you can just sell your artwork on your Facebook page, which is You can do it on your profile, but Facebook might flag you and shut your profile down because they're seeing that you're obviously doing a lot of business through your personal profile, and they don't necessarily want that, but you can bring a lot of awareness to your work through posting close-up photos or little mini videos of artwork in progress. You can post finished pieces. So like, what do you post on your page? I think that's a big ambiguous thing that creators have. Like, what do I post? Maybe I'm too scared to put out something that I don't feel is perfect. Maybe I'm too worried about copyright infringement, or what if somebody steals my work? I think what's really important to remember is watermark your visual and written work. And by doing that, it helps protect. It gives you a layer of protection. People who are going to steal work are going to steal work. And a lot of these different sites already have disclaimers about that. So they're not really following the rules anyway, but you're not posting for the benefit of people who steal your work. You're posting so that people can discover you and buy your work. So that should be the first and foremost priority. You should not base your posting on fear of who's going to steal. That's at least our opinion, I think.
Yeah. In fact, there's Steal Like an Artist is an actual book written by an artist. It's the concept that in a way that, we have all learned by viewing, listening to whatever, tuning in to others, and then we add our own blend to it, whether it's recipes or art, photography, writing, fiction, etc. It's all at some point been infused, inspired by something else, and then we blend it with our own creativity and imagination, and it becomes then our own work. Now, back to the thing of if people actually steal your work online, if you're watermarking things,
which means putting a little logo or your name or your website or Facebook page on some corner of your work, so that it traces back to you.
It doesn't have to be in the corner. It can be in the middle, top, center, whatever. At the bottom, preferably the margin, the top or bottom margin. Usually the bottom margin.
Like a painter would sign their painting.
Exactly, and for instance, so the benefit is you want to be found. You want people to share it. So if someone grabs it off your Facebook page and pulls it to their desktop, turns around and reposts it, with their own comments, not attributing it to you, that's okay, because you've got your watermark on it. And the whole point is you want it to get shared and spread and found, because then if anyone really, and we've talked about this in articles as well, I think it's Coffee Breaks, where we've really wanted to share an artist's work, some beautiful creation that we've seen online, and we've been unable to give tribute because it was not watermarked. We don't even know who the artist or the original artist was. And by the time it was shared so many times, it was so far removed from the origin that it was not to be found. So people, and we would have loved to have found them, not only to thank them, to interview them, to maybe even hire them, to commission them to create something specific for us. So there will be those out there who will find you in a similar way. So don't be afraid or reticent. That's more like the old school. The traditional way was to be very closed and cloistered, to not allowing people to even see your work beforehand, but share it freely. Just watermark it so they can find their way back to you.
And include...
Sorry. Let me just one more thing, just to be clear. Fine to sign it if it's better, like Devani said earlier, that the watermark at least and for sure include your website or Facebook page name so that they can find their way to you. Yeah. Like if it's just a signature, they may not be able to read it.
Yeah, exactly. So you could have your signature on the original piece of work, but then have a little digital stamp. Basically, it's like www.whatever.com or at Art by Devani, whatever it is, whatever your Facebook page name is. Something else. People love story. And so, of course, if you're a writer, you know this, right? You're writing stories. Mackenzie Clinch in our group posts these wonderful daily vignettes and stories and encouragement for other creatives. If you're a writer, depending on what you write, you could share different vignettes of what you're working on, what your ideas you have, poetry. And again, you can add some of those to visuals. We can link to a tutorial on how to create visual graphics. Those technical things are very simple and easy to learn. I think the most important thing on creating visuals, if you're not a visual artist, start as simple as possible. There's lots of tutorials online. There's lots of apps. We'll link some of our favorites, but just pick a very simple thing. And because what's simple is you'll do what's simple. If you overcomplicate it from the get, you're not going to be consistent. So just make it the simplest thing you can do. And we'll put examples in our show notes. But what I was going to say is, if you're a visual artist, story is also very important for your work. And one of the people we've interviewed several times, Eva Nikkonen, is a Finnish artist. She's a fantasy artist, and she creates little stories around the world she paints. And a lot of her visuals they're stunning visuals, but she creates a written short story. And sometimes it's just a paragraph, sometimes it's just a sentence, but it gives the reader context of what they're looking at so that they have a way for their imagination to wander. And I think that's really important. We also went, when we were a couple of weeks ago, we went to a Lululemon store, and they were posting art from local artists in the store. And they said what was really popular was including the artist's story, a little bit about who they are, what inspired their art. And people love that. Mm-hmm. People want to know, what is the context of this artist? Why is their creativity like this? What are they trying to convey? And even if you create more abstract art and you kind of want people to glean what they glean, it gives this context for them of, this is why you're important in my day. This is why your art matters to me when I'm scrolling through the timeline. And it just gives your work another element, another depth, another layer of meaning, not just for people viewing on social, but then also people who might want to buy your work. Maybe you create an abstract painting that's really green, and it's like a vibrant green painting, and you share about how it's a source of healing. Somebody who works at a doctor's office might want to hang it in their professional studio. Or maybe you have a serene, meditative, Zen style painting. Maybe a yoga studio wants it to hang in their studio as well. So just in the context of who you want buying your work, that story really helps anchor the piece of artwork for people. And I think it's important to include on social media.
Yeah, and in fact, the store clerk at Lululemon made the observation that she said people really read those stories, the artist stories, the artist bios. And we've written about an article on artist bios, which we'll link to, which includes that little vignette about Lululemon, which we'll link to in the show notes here as well. So chances are,
it's like each artwork has its little bio too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little story. And Linda Suzanne Wright is one of the artists in our community, and she does a wonderful job. Not only like she gives her work names. I mean, many people do. So that's another thing. It's a fascinating thing to give it a name. And a lot of times her names are like intriguing and like makes you want to know, sometimes the names that she gives makes you want to know what's the story behind the choice of the name.
Can I pull one up while you're talking?
And then the other thing she has done, because she is retired from her profession as a music teacher, and I think she also taught English. Do you remember? I think she was an English teacher at one point, a writing teacher. But at any rate, she is also a writer. And she creates and photographer. She is very multi-talented, multifaceted artist, like creator, like many in our audience. And so she blends those, which is back to the Daniel Pink. That's a whole new mind. It is blending. You know, in her case, she has the technical knowledge. She knows Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, etc.
She has a great eye for photos.
And she blends those skills together into creations that are incredibly unique. And she has shows that she's doing several shows this week in exhibiting her work. But one example was she would create a work of art and then she would write 100-word stories around that. Well, 100 words is basically 2 to 3 paragraphs. And so that's another way of creating enchantment and intrigue and a following to grow your following. Now, the person who originally asked this question was Colleen Nichols in the I Create Daily community. And she's a mom. I think she lives on a farm and gardener.
Chicken
lover. She has chickens.
I don't like growing chickens.
Yeah. She had a squirrel follow her one time, a baby squirrel that was injured, follow her home. And she was able to help rehabilitate that. I think was that her or a friend? I think it was.
I don't know. They had a squirrel.
Yeah, it was her.
Yeah, so she made a polymer squirrel.
Yeah. So and she's just an amazing lady with lots of things. Another multi-talented creator. And so to answer part of her question relative to content, just all the things that you're sharing in the creative groups that you're a member of, then share those on your page. people like to see it, and then notice what people comment, notice what people like the most, and engage in those conversations. Ask people what they are up to. So there's something else I was gonna
There's
say.
a pretty.
Sorry. Colleen has an Etsy store, and
we'll link it below,
which we will link below, and so where she's selling digital photography as well as craft things that she's created.
She's a very talented. She just dives into different crafts and does a great job.
Painting, yeah. She does commission art, etc. So, and that's the thing, as creators for a time, maybe for all time, but for now and starting up, it's okay really if you're sharing with the world all the different things that you're doing, because you don't know yet what it is that people are going to most respond to and find most interesting, and in particular, voting what they're going to vote on with their wallets by virtue of wanting to purchase what it is that you've made.
And the more you share, the more people have an understanding of what you have available of value to them. And I think that, and especially if you're even if you're not a multi-talented creator, even if all you care about is you just want to paint your paintings, yes, or you just want to write your poetry, that's all you want to do, and you want to go like 20 miles deep in your lifetime on that one craft, the more you can put out, I think, address any perfectionism, because social media, you never know what's going to hit. You might hate a poem, but you put it out there and your audience is like, wow, that really spoke to me. Like, you might have hated it, but your audience, it might just take off like you can't believe, which is why that's part of art. It's like you put something out there and you don't know how other people will respond. You only know how you respond because you're very close to your work. I think somebody asked, actually it's not super relevant, but people have mentioned, like, they'll post in our group and say, I don't really like this. There's something wrong. There's something that I'm missing in this piece of art. And it's not complete yet. And then others will comment saying, no, it's fantastic. Like, I wish I could draw like that. If only I could, if only. It's important. I think that a lot of times fear stops people from creating their own brand. If that's a path that they're thinking about or on the fence about, I think it's the fear of putting their work out there and having it critiqued and judged. But something to keep in mind is, more often than not, people are supportive of people who put themselves out there because it reminds them that they could do it too. Mm-hmm. Or it gives them the inspiration they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, I scroll through Instagram or Facebook and I see an amazing piece of art, and even if the artist has all this self-doubt about it, it's like, wow, that's amazing. That's really cool that you put that out there and that you did that and you took time out of your day to make something. So I think focusing more on the fact that other people are really looking for inspiration regularly might help you reframe the fear that you have of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions on any of this. That, again, back to the audience interaction. The more we know about what it is you would like to know more about, such as Colleen's question, and the questions that you have around what we're putting out, the more we can serve you and the more we can bring value to you, which is ultimately our goal. So yeah, just don't be afraid to put it out there. Don't worry and second guess and let your doubts hold sway. Just put things out there, and like there's this thing in the online world of quick, iteration, reiteration, like put things out there quickly, see how it works, and put the next thing and the next thing. Back to the Picasso's, what is it, 50,000?
There was like over 50,000 pieces of work in his lifetime.
Which is over 2 a day.
Which made 100 masterpieces.
Yeah, from which, exactly, and you think about people who put music out there, and oftentimes the rock groups or bands or whatever, musicians have a few good hits, maybe even just one, that make all the difference for their entire thing. So so don't just put it out there, and that will be the fastest way to grow your skills and to grow your brand, which is your following, those who follow you. Because here's the thing, in today's world, with so much proliferation of creation, products, opportunities, the ones who are growing a foundation in the world, a foothold in this vastly noisy, increasingly so, online world, are the ones who will have the audience available to buy your work when it is you put it out there for sale. So definitely grow your brand if you're serious about your work, serious about your art. Now, if it is that you are not sure and you're just an hobbyist and right now, and you're just beginning to get into a creative endeavor, and give room for your creative side to develop, then still it's okay. You can do it from your personal profile. So continue to post, because then you will still attract the friends who are interested. Don't hesitate though. It's free, absolutely free to set up a Facebook page. It is not that difficult. You can create the Facebook page and share what you're creating from there and see how it begins to grow. You share what you create on your Facebook page to your personal profile periodically, so that you've got both going on. And then if you decide to never do anything with your art professionally, or for commercial value or gain or whatever, or for revenue, that's fine. You still got a following of people who enjoy what you've put out there. And, even if you ended up closing it down, nothing lost. And then it's helped you decide. Because, for instance, if somebody's trying to decide, like there may be somebody who's into watercolor, but they're starting acrylics and they're not sure if they're good at it, and then they find that people love their acrylics, and it might encourage you to go in the direction that you're not sure of yet. Now, you mentioned poetry a few minutes ago, or poets. So yes, if you just write poetry and you're an introvert and you don't even want to read your poetry, but you just want to put it out online, absolutely fine. Then just do lots of that. Do short pieces, do long, do in between, put it out before you think you're ready. Get audience feedback. If you're so into poetry and you want to grow your brand in other ways, then one of the greatest ways to do that would be to do spoken word poetry.
Oh, that's so smart.
That reading your poetry. You can use a resource like we use for our podcast, the video podcast and recording audio as well, which is zoom.us. We'll include those links, of course, as well. But it's a free, if you, for up to 45 minutes per session, you can have a free account. You can use Zoom for free to record up to 45 minutes a session. And it's still very inexpensive for like an annual $100 or so, if you basically want unlimited access to it. Or I'm sure there's a cap, there's a limit to space in your, your account, your back end for hosting your videos, but you can still download them to your site. So anyway, your computer. So that's not a big deal. So yeah, so there's
or even less than that. If you want to grow your Facebook page quickly, you could live stream yourself reading stuff. Now, in terms of video on Facebook, fairly. 1 second, our internet, I think we're fine. Got a little internet unstable thing, but I think it's okay. So you could read your memoir, you could read your poetry, you could talk about your creative process, you could share some of your artwork and talk about different pieces and what they mean to you. There's so many different ways to use video, and if you want to do it at the most basic level, you could always start with live streaming from your page. It'll help you grow your Facebook page more because they like to boost a video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's a good, that can be intimidating because of the live nature of it, which is why we prefer at least starting with Zoom. But whatever reduces the barrier of entry for you doing the next thing on your list or wish list to want to try or to do toward growing your brand. Now, if it is that you go with the Zoom video, for instance, if you're putting things on YouTube, the advantage there is if you do it on Facebook, it's in your timeline and your friend's timeline for a while, your followers' timeline, and then it disappears forever, essentially. I mean, yeah, it's in your library or it's in your photo, thing for those who go, but very rarely do people actually go there on a page or profile unless they're really, really deeply interested in that. So you have to kind of put yourself out there. So by putting it on YouTube, once you put it out there, it's there forever. And you can share the YouTube link to your Facebook. So that's why we tend to favor like recording it on something like Zoom and then posting it on YouTube, create a YouTube channel and post it on YouTube, and then share that to your various socials as a way to like begin to grow your brand and following. And along those lines, some of the most popular YouTube videos are the tutorials, time-lapse videos, things that show your creative process from beginning to end in a time-lapse kind of fashion.
There's a lady in our group, Crystal, I think her last name is Jean. Crystal Jean. and she's done several. She started a YouTube channel. She's done several time-lapse videos of her painting different things, crafting different things, and she's big into acrylic painting and making pendants out of I don't
resin
know.
and some kind of resin and
resin.
paint. Paint resin. We need to check in with her. We haven't heard from her recently. So yeah. So were you going to read that from Linda?
Yeah,
right?
An example of a way to post a piece of art, and I'll include this in our show notes.
Piece of art with story.
A piece of art with story. Linda Suzanne Wright posted in our group a photo, beautiful photo. It's a very dreamlike photo, and it's edited, and it's actually called Dream State. That's the name of the photo. And she posted a quick 100-word story, and inspired by. So I'm reading this from her caption. So, dream stories in 100 words, inspired by the art and writing of Nick Bantock. 1. 4 a.m. The dream returned. Dark and light, silence and noise. Jessie woke atop a downy mattress in the middle of a tiny island. Retuning her senses, she became aware of a glowing light on an adjacent island. She heard music, soft singing carried across the waves, accompanying rather than drowning out the music of the waves themselves. Over the music grew heavy splashing. The angelic creature swam towards her, appearing to be carrying a child. Handing the tiny boy to her, he asked kindly, "Was this what you wanted?" Smiling, she opened her arms. And the photo is called Dream State by Linda Suzanne Wright. And that's just such a
and we will link that
enriching. We'll link it and share it in the show notes. It's such an enriching addition to the photo.
Yeah.
And
vice versa. The photo is a wonderful addition to the words.
Yeah.
And the words, the story makes you want to know more about the story. So, and by the way, back to growing your audience for creators, if you are a writer creator, then that would be a way that would be book that intrigue people. It could be the book that you've already published, and excerpts from the books you've already published. It could be tantalizing excerpts like that from books that are in process or yet to be written, and see and then the audience feedback is incredible. It really gives you a lot of fantastic information. The people who follow you and make comments and like what you do, ask them for their, post an excerpt of a scene, and then say, I'm trying to decide how to end this or which direction to go. What would you do? Would you go this way or that? Or what thoughts do you have in general? I'm stuck, whatever it may be that's true. Post that and just be real with your audience, because in this really thickly populated and densely populated market era, what people are resonating to and enjoying more is connecting with people.
Yeah.
People like to connect with people, which is the connect part in I Create Daily. And the contribution part is posting and sharing what you do and sharing that with our audience. That's one of the ways that we contribute.
Yeah. Entertainment and education, those are like the two biggest things that people want to consume, something that educates them, enlightens their work or whatever they're doing in whatever industry you're in, or something that entertains them. And art definitely I would say art falls into both categories, but especially that spark of entertainment in somebody's day.
Yeah. And as you're building your, in particular now, if you're taking some of this to your website, such as, so let's say that you have a website and you publish articles that you've written onto your Facebook posts that link to the article on your website. We have tips elsewhere that we'll link to as well on things that you can do and need to do if you want to drive traffic at all to your website. And so we'll link to that. But
the article is
well, content, I was thinking more about the SEO.
Oh, yeah.
With the search engine optimization, the SEO podcast that we've done, interviews we've done, we have about 3 or more, as well as some articles. We will link to those because, those are it's such a big topic, and topic, we recently interviewed Tara Jacobson, and she is an expert on that, and that's what she talked about. She's been in the game for a long time, and she's
an Etsy seller.
Multifaceted creator. In fact, she has a training right now on how to grow your Pinterest following that we will link to as well. There'll be a lot of links in this
I think
interview.
Colleen would enjoy
Pinterest.
If you're listening to this, you would enjoy the Pinterest tutorial, so we'll link that below because I think that will also be an incredible outlet for your crafting, and anybody who's doing crafting, that'll be incredible for getting traffic and eyeballs because Pinterest is, I believe, 80% women who are middle-class shoppers.
And by the way, we get a lot more traffic from our Pinterest account to all of our brands than from Facebook.
Yes.
So that's another reason that's important to consider. But again, and the article you mentioned, content distribution strategies and all that. If you're already exhausted by how much it sounds like you're going to need to create, don't worry, don't be, because there's so many ways to take the one thing, one article, one piece of art, one poem, whatever it is that you've created, and multiply that into a number of different posts and products as well. So there's so many ways to do that. Don't feel overwhelmed, just one step at a time. It's like any journey, if you're not there yet, it can seem, you can be impatient. It can be daunting because you've never been there yet. But, one step each day, you're on your way.
Yeah. And I think to sort of wrap it up with some action steps so that it just gives you the summary, be consistent every day, decide if you're overwhelmed, just pick Facebook or Instagram and just decide to post every single day to one of those profiles. So be consistent. That's important. 2, learn how to create story. If you don't already know how, learn how to just pull people in with story to your visual art, to your written words. And that's just part of your craft. So that's part of what you're doing already. And just learn how to share that. So be consistent, develop story around your work, and share it. Show up to Facebook, Instagram, wherever you go. I did mention that we would share a couple Instagram tips. We don't have a whole lot of expertise on Instagram, so we'll link trainings that we've taken that are much better and go more in depth on Instagram marketing. But what works a lot is using hashtags properly. So researching different hashtags in your area. So writers, artists, entrepreneurs, crafters, just look at your niche on Instagram, search the hashtags and what's trending there and how they're publishing content. So do a lot of research on what is popular in your crafting genre and how you can sort of take that into your world, how you can do short videos, how you can create compelling posts, whether you're a writer or a crafter. I think what's most important, again, is being consistent and sticking to a schedule. So if you're going to post daily, post daily. Learn the difference between an Instagram story versus an Instagram feed post. Like, just dive into that world. And again, we'll provide links of trainings, but the most important thing for everything is being consistent and learning the platform. So that means being serious about it. It's not just social sharing anymore. It's have a strategy in place and learn something. Post something every day and learn something about the platform you want to excel at every day. Yeah,
and along those lines, just to add another PS to your wrap up, your great wrap up there is a great way to do it is using a goals journal. So this is a little plug for our 90-day goals journal. I create daily 90-day goals journal because here's the thing. Let's say that in 90 days, you could decide that you want to grow your Facebook following. And then you break that down. You want to grow your brand and you want to do it on Facebook. So then you break down your goals of how many posts you're going to do a day, what kind of posts you're going to do a day, what technology you're going to learn, most of what you want to know. We link sometimes to some of the paid courses out there because if you want to go deeper on any one thing, then first what we recommend is consume all the free content you can, and then if there's still missing links and pieces, and you just want to become the expert on that, which in social media manager for others, every skill that you learn, we got another internet unstable connection thing. So I'm
right at the important point.
Right at the important part. Is there whatever it is you want to learn, know that becomes a marketable skill that you might be able to share with and serve others with if you need to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a food blogger. It's called The Minimalist Baker, and she started a food blog, and she's been food blogging for like probably 10 years. But her other thing is that she has food photography and food videography courses. So, you know, like you get good at your craft, you get good at your skill, and then the natural next thing is you teach other people who want to do something specific with it. So you could decide, I'm going to teach other Etsy sellers how to use Instagram to sell your work. I mean, it could be anything, but the more, like you were saying, like Leora was saying, the more skills that you learn, the more you'll grow your own brand and the more you have a marketable skill.
Right. And and they're always useful to you and to others. I was going to say one more thing that we forgot to recover or pick up on, and it just left my brain. Shoot. Oh, well, I guess we can put it in the notes if it comes back. So, or pick it up on another episode. So
we hope this was helpful. And again, we'll have a ton of examples and resources in the show notes that will go much deeper on each layer. We really wanted to give an overview and just some really simple action steps for anybody to take to just get started. I think the most important thing is just get started with something. Yeah. And
don't make it
we all figure it out as we go. We're sharing tips that we've learned along the way to shorten your curve. But again, you're going to dive in and you're going to come across struggles. You see a different angle, you're going to start posting on Facebook and realize, actually, I like video more than photos. Like, you're going to figure out your style. It all comes from just taking that first step, and you don't need to worry about having perfect branding. You'll figure that out. That really just, all of that will evolve, because your brand will evolve as you evolve and put your work out there. So the first big step is just taking the first step.
And I remembered what it was, and it just ties right back into the concept of, as you post on Facebook, what it is you're learning, what is you're doing, then that's and the videos that you created, whatever you've created, that's where it is that people may come to you and start asking you, how do you do that? So for instance, the I Create Daily Journal has become a big part of our brand and offerings now. We're a media publishing company. Our primary focus is creating and developing websites, and I don't mean for other people, I mean around our own brands for the most part, and the things that we're interested in. So we have a gardening website, gardensall.com. We have the I Create Daily website and brand. What happened with the I Create Daily Goals Journal is that we ran a challenge, and the journal that we used didn't quite work for most of our members, and so we thought, well, we just create one. We've done a podcast about that before. But the point is that and for that reason, by the way, I wanted to mention, so we could interview people who have journals. Back to the abundance and non-competitive thing, collaboration, contribution, connection. We could totally interview people who have journals, and we're, by the way, changing our interview from the name of our interviews from interviews to conversations with creatives. And we'll talk more about that in the future. If it's our brand more, right? We're having conversations, not just static interviews. But anyway, where was I going?
Well, it's just how you evolve as your audience, as you get audience feedback and you're consistent, you'll get comments like, how do I do this?
Right. So we started the journal, and so we're not competitive. And the journal is just one of the things we have. It's one of our favorite things because we have learned and discovered that is one of the best ways to get your goals done is to write them, to think them, write them, do them, track them. And so for that reason, we're big on the I Create Daily Goals journals as well as the iArt Daily journals. And we're big on gratitude. So we created a gratitude journal. But that's not who we are. Those are just some of the things we've created and some of the things we have. And then from that, we discover what it is that people are interested in. However, what we did is we created the goals journal because people wanted something. So what we would do differently, like on our next goals journal next journal rather, whatever it may be, is test it with an audience. So before before you spend the money on creating, beta test, find out what people want, and they will be telling you as you post things, how do you do that? Or could you create a book of this, a children's book from this art? I would love to share it with my children, that kind of thing. They'll tell you what they want, and then that will help you develop ideas and put it back to them and ask them what they want. Would they buy that? And you can even pre-sell things before you make it. So in a way, you could be doing a little bit of your own, like crowdfunding and or like research from your own platform and audience to bring people who follow you what it is that they want.
Totally.
Before you invest.
Yeah. And that only happens if you make the decision to start building your audience. And of course, this is for people who want to build a brand. If you don't want to build a brand, then you, by no means, we are speaking to people who want to build an artistic brand. If you're just doing
this, not sure.
Yeah,
like
or if you're not
earlier.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
If you think you want to, and a lot of times now, and we really should do a whole podcast on that, so we won't get into it deep, but if you're not sure and you think you might want to do something with your art, a lot of times the not sure part is really what you're saying is, I'm afraid, or I'm doubtful if I'm good enough. So don't doubt that. Don't let fear stop you from becoming more through your creative endeavors. Yeah. So, all right.
And one last thing, the only difference with social media for building a brand versus social media just for your personal time is that you're posting and commenting with more intention. And so it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's really the same. Oh, Caspian, stop it. Sorry, dog bark. It's the same concept of sharing. So you'd be sharing anyway. We're all on social media to share stuff. You're just adding a layer of intention. Like, hey guys, I'm an artist. I'm going to post my art now instead of posting everybody else's art. Because what you're doing when you post personally, which is fine, you're posting personally, it's totally fine. That's how this stuff works. But you're supporting other creators, which is great. Yes. Like, we love that. But the difference in building the brand is now you're doing it with intention. Now you have a reason and your own work and your own creativity that you're bringing to the table that other people get to share too.
Yeah, I know we keep having like this is like the post script.
P.S.
Right, the fourth P.S. But what you said just reminded me of just yesterday. Somebody posted a really beautiful meme, essentially from art that they created in the group. So don't hesitate to use your own art to even quote yourself. If you're not an artist but you're a writer, then part of your art is your quotes. Your quotes. So you can find incredible free images from Pixabay, which is our #1 go-to place. Another place is Unsplash. Both of them are free. And try to give the
artist credit,
the original artist credits from there, but it's optional whether or not to do that. We like to do it whenever we can. So use what's out there, use your own work, and don't hesitate and don't be afraid to put it out there. Somebody said, there used to be this thing about somebody criticizing someone for liking their own comment in a Facebook timeline and all that. I was just thinking about that just this morning. And
of course I like it. I put it out there.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so what are you saying? That I shouldn't like what I put out there? A lot of times when it happens, it's accidental. Or like we'll go in, like I just loved like one of our coffee break things where I was actually loving the artist or the person that we were talking about or the topic or the interview or whatever. So I wasn't like loving our own podcast, although I do. Okay, it is your work in the world, and if you value it, other people will as well.
Yep, all that.
Okay.
Value yourself
and your art, and keep creating daily.
And let us know what you would like us to go deeper in so that we can help you more.
Yes,
that's the whole point. We don't do this so we can enjoy hearing ourselves talk.
And so
we listen to the replays while we're editing it and we're like, I said too many times. So we're definitely not doing this to hear ourselves talk. So if you do have questions like Colleen, we did this because Colleen Nichols asked, like, what do we do? What should I be doing? Can you point me in the right direction? And so if you have similar questions on any topic, we can either find the people to interview, to have conversations with, or we will share our thoughts if we have any.
So you can reach us at creators@icreatedaily.com. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.